Hey guys, in this video I will show you how to make an abstract city landscape in Blender. We'll do some geometry nodes work, create some procedural materials and discover two external softwares, JSplacement and Mixamo. Let's get started! So let's go with the brand new file and we'll start from doing the city. So we'll go with plane, click Tab, A, X and delete all vertices. So let's go to geometry nodes. Kill this window, click new, and we have to add some grid that will determine what will be the size of the city. So let's add Shift A grid, plug mesh to geometry, and here we have our plane. Let's adjust it to our needs. So let's play with size X and Y. And now let's add some points. Let's distribute points on faces, and that's exactly the name of the node. So distribute points on faces. Let's go. And we'll go here with poison disk. I think this will be too much, but I will decide right after I add the city as just long cubes, as you saw on the thumbnail and at the beginning of the video. So let's add the instance on points, and now all our points have disappeared. So we have to add cube and plug it into instance. Obviously these are too big. So let's crank down the size, and now we have all these small cubes distributed randomly. But as you see here, some of them are overlapping and we do not need this in our city. So we have to change the distance minimum in the distribute points on faces node. So as you see, when I'm dragging this up, we don't have any overlapping cubes. We have to do something to make this cube much higher, but we don't want to have them exactly all the same height. So let's start from cranking up the size in the cube panel, and now we'll play with the scale. So we have to add some more nodes, and let's start from map range. So let's start from adding the map range and node called combine XYZ. So we are only scaling on the Z axis, not all the axes, because if I plug the result to scale now and play with some of these values, as you see here, all the axes are affected, but we don't want that, and we want only the Z axis to be affected. So let's plug this, and really important thing, change X and Y to 1. Now we can change the Z axis using the map range, as you see here. Let's turn off clamp. Yeah, something is happening, but that something isn't enough for us. So let's leave it for now, but turn off the clamp, it's important. And let's add random value. So the height of the buildings aren't all the same. And right after I've added the random value, you can see that not all the buildings are the same. I can unplug it, all the same, and plug it again, not all the same. And we can adjust that differences using this max slide. And let's have fun some more with the map range. When we find the satisfying result, we will be golden. So here you can see the final values that I think are okay for me. And I forgot about one important thing, because when you let's add join geometry and join the grid, so we can see it. And as you see here, some of the buildings are below that, are cutting through the plane. So to fix that, let's add transform modifier, transform node, and in translation, let's find the sweet spot that will make our buildings perfectly aligned to this grid. So I think it will be here, just 0.5. Exactly. And you can see it's overlapping, but it just shows that it's perfect aligned. When you zoom in, it's unnoticeable. So in my design, you've noticed that we have some kind of cut for the globe and for the character going up the stairs. And to do it, we will do some geometry proximity. That's the exact name of the node. Geometry proximity. Here we go. Let's plug distance to value. And you see something happened, but that's not exactly what we need, so we can hide it for now. Let's add a sphere. That will be the controller for the buildings of the city that are meant to be scaled down to give us the place for the globe later on. So let's go back to our geometry nodes. Let's drag the sphere, click here and move it right here, and automatically it will add us object info. You can also do it manually, going and looking for object info node and then add the sphere here. Let's add geometry to target and distance to value. So that's for sure not what we want. Let's go to map range and adjust the from minimum. And as you see here, we have this thing looking much better. And you can of course manipulate it as you want. I think you won't need the sphere anymore, so you can make a new collection called trash and put this sphere in trash. Just disable this collection and we are good. I will also delete this grid from the joint geometry because we won't use this plane, it won't be visible. And for the future, let's make the set material node, as we will be of course creating some material. And let's add realize instances. And later on I will show you what the difference it makes. And later on I will show you why I have added this node. So now let's go and create the globe with this grid effect. So instead of adding standard UV sphere or IQ sphere, I will go with cube. Let's move it up and give it subdivision level. I think 4 is good. Let's apply visual geometry to mesh and then Alt Shift S and drag it until you see to sphere 1. Why are we gonna use cube? That's because UV unwrapping the sphere, UV sphere, is much harder than UV unwrapping the cube that is turned into sphere. As you see here, we have it already unwrapped, and for the sake of this texture, it will be more than enough. But if we have to unwrap the UV sphere that is subdivided, it will be a pain. So it also applies to sculpting. When you can use the quad sphere, let's say, go for it. So right click, shade smooth, and let's scale it up. Of course, later when we set the camera, we'll be adjusting, I think, all the things to make sure our render looks great. So now let's go and model these stairs that you saw in my design. It's really simple. Let's get a cube, scale it on the z-axis down even more. So these are really thin. And now let's scale it on x-axis to get that rectangle shape. And here is the matter of your preferences. I think that's okay. Go to side view, place it somewhere there. And now we have to add array modifier that will duplicate our stairs on that kind of curve. And to get this, let's turn the factor x to 0. Factor z. So I think that kind of distance is okay on the z-axis, and now we have to adjust the y-axis. And here you have to be really subtle. Okay, and now play with the count. Maybe let's scale this down so we have these stairs smaller. And here we go. We can later adjust the count, we can adjust everything, but we will take care about this when we finally set the camera. And we will start setting camera right now. So let's add camera and let's go to the view that may work for us. So let's say something like this, Control, Alt, and numpad 0. In my design, I had focal length set on something like 70 millimeters. So it's that kind of fisheye. And as you see here, it's pretty off. And that's because the stairs are just too big compared to the city and compared to the globe. So we can scale down the stairs and play with the camera, or we can scale up the city and globe and then also play with the camera. So let's make a quick time lapse on how I'm setting the camera and adjusting stairs, city and the globe to get the desired result. So there you go. Pretty simple changes to scale the city, I went to geometry nodes and played with size X and size Y. I played with camera just by clicking grab and then adding composition guides for the center to just make sure it's aligned to the center, because I've noticed it's kinda off. Then I played with the rotation and I fixed the Y rotation and Z rotation, because it's much cleaner when you have 0 instead of 0.003 blah blah blah. Also, it's kind of my preference, but I like to put passpart out to full 1 instead of like 0.9. I prefer to have full 1, but that's just my preference. So now to make our texturing process easier to see so now let's put some materials. Let's start from the stairs and let's click new, and we'll make pretty easy design based on the transparency of the object. So pretty much like we did in the Plexus tutorial. And if you haven't seen yet the Plexus tutorial, make sure to click the link in the tab at the top right of the screen. top right corner, of course. Let's go to materials, change blend mode from opaque to alpha blend. Let's change the material name to stairs. Let's delete the basic principle BSDF, go with mix shader, emission and transparent, and the color will be, of course, in my case that will be some bluish color. Let's crank up the strength to something like 10, and now let's add some textures that will give me that pattern, that some kind of technology pattern. So let's add Voronoi texture, noise texture. Let's add mapping and texture coordinate using Ctrl T, and to have this shortcut working, you must turn on the node wrangler in the add-ons, in the preferences right here. So you go to preferences, add-ons, and node wrangler. Click here and you're golden. Ctrl T, change from generated to object, plug distance to vector, and let's add color ramp. Factor to factor and color to factor, and nothing happens. Why is that? Because we have to adjust our color ramp and we see something, but that's not what we wanted. So let's get this really close together, like in this Plexus tutorial. I will be referring to it so much times. Let's play with the scale, but that won't change what we need. We have this like elliptic shapes, I don't know. We have to change Voronoi from Euclidean to Chebyshev or Chebyshev. And here we have this square stuff. Let's play with the scale. It's also the matter of your preferences. Yeah, I think I will make this color a bit darker. And of course, let's turn off the world light. And here we have it and stairs are now textured. Something like that. Of course, don't hesitate to play with the nodes. You can add many other textures, just plug them right after. Use math node with add, multiply. It's just up to you. The options are endless. So for the city, let's create a new material, call it city. And now we have to add this material to set material node in geometry nodes tab, city. And now we can go back to shading. Let's go to material preview, / on the numpad to go to the local view, and this will be a bit different, but we'll go also with the Voronoi texture. So we have to add 3 Voronoi textures. So the first one, and I will use also the Chebyshev. It gives us this square pattern. Let's duplicate it 3 times, get 2 math node. First will be add and plug distance here, color here. Let's get another one, set this one to multiply and plug the distance here and value, and this goes to the bump, value to height, and normal to normal. And as you see here, we have something going on here. I think I can play with the rotation to make that more obvious. Yeah, exactly. Also, let's plug this Voronoi texture color to the metallic. Yep, much better. And also base color goes almost to all dark, like this. Roughness, let's go to something like 0.2, because later it will look much better, because we will have 2 lights that will give us this abstract retro vibe maybe. So we'll have light blue and light purple. So now let's play with the scale to get some results. Maybe some more that pattern. And let's now add these kind of windows, glowing lights. So to do it, we have to take one more Voronoi texture, set it to F2, then color ramp, mix shader, plug the color ramp to factor, BSDF to the upper socket, and then let's take emission, plug it to the bottom socket, change it to the color that you want to have your windows. So it will be something like this, and 15, I think it will be cool. Distance to factor, Ctrl T, and plug it to surface. And we have our material messed up. So again, color ramp. And using this black button on the color ramp, you can adjust the amount of the light visible on your buildings. So it's up to you, up to your design. To have like smaller but more of that windows, you have to adjust the scale in your mapping node. As you see here, we have many windows, many lights, but these are really small, and we have erased some of them, playing with this black portion of the color ramp. Okay, so we have this. Now let's add 2 lights, and I will drag and get the second window. We can zoom it in and change and actually enable ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space refractions. So let's add light area, put it in on the right side, rotate, scale up, and take some purple color and crank up the wattage to something like this, let's say, and change from square to disk. Play with the lighting when you find the result that is satisfying for you. Let's duplicate the light, and this one will be blue to give some contrast. Let's also go to color management and get high contrast. It often makes your design look much better. So let's adjust your light, play with it until you find the satisfying result. And now let's take care about adding the grid material to your cube. So here we have the JSplacement software. We have to click here and get the dot grid. I highly recommend going through all of these tabs because we can generate really cool stuff like here. Or I really like this one, I think. Yeah, this one is awesome. And if you want to see the tutorial how to put this texture in geometry nodes to actually displace it, leave the comment, but we'll stick to the dot grid. Let's generate something. And here you can play with the result, change the scale, drawing chance, enable or disable some of the shapes, but we'll leave it as it is. Get save height, and if you saved it, let's go to Mixamo and get the character to fulfill our design. So here we are in Mixamo. I found the character called Eli by K Atienza, looking pretty good in this design. And now go to animations and look for stairs animation. We have this animation and we go to download. Just leave it as it is and download. And now that after our short journey with other softwares, we are in Blender, let's go to File, Import, FBX. And when you've found your file, let's just click on it and import FBX. Okay, so now that we've added the character to the scene, let's get this character to our stairs. Let's rotate it on the Z-axis and let's place this character on the stairs. You may need to take the frame that you will find useful. So let's go to the side view and let's align this character with the stairs. You may need to scale, maybe rotate, move, whatever. So let's make a quick time lapse on. Okay, I think that's perfect. Okay, so now that we have our character aligned with the stairs, let's take care about the material for the globe. So let's go to shading, let's go to camera view, and let's go to the local view at the earth. And let's add the new material, call it globe. And the material for this is like we did with the stairs, mix shader, emission, transparent, black. Here, 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 and change blend mode to alpha blend. Let's add image texture with our grid pattern, and now mapping and UV is great because we have already our sphere unwrapped. Go color ramp, plug color to factor and color to factor. And as you see, nothing is going on. It's because we have to adjust the color ramp. And boom, here we have our pattern. Now let's change the color from white to this purple, magenta, pink. Nice. Let's crank up the strength. Awesome. We can also play with the scale. Just be careful with playing with the scale, because otherwise it may be too obvious that we have just image texture and it will look weird. So now let's add this kind of spacey image to work with the globe. And to do it, we'll have to grab an image from Unsplash, link in the description. So if you have this image, let's go to Image, Images as Planes. And if you don't have Images as Planes in Image tab, you have to enable an add-on called Images as Planes. It's also by default comes with Blender. So with that image imported, let's scale it up and put it behind the globe. Go to camera view and we don't see anything. So let's go to Shading tab, click on that image, and we have to delete the principled BSDF, get emission, plug color to color and emission to surface. Yeah, much better, isn't it? Now let's play with strength to make it more subtle maybe. And I really like how it's looking right now. Yeah, neat. Let's adjust it, maybe scale it up. It looks really cool. If you want to play with the color, let's add hue saturation and play with the hue. I think that's cool. Maybe let's scale this globe. So now let's change this orange emission to the blue emission. And to do it, let's go to Shading tab again, click on the character, and let's find the path that is going to our emission socket right here. Let's add the hue saturation value node, and let's play with the hue value until you find the blue color. There we go. You can also crank the emission strength value here to get more that bloom effect. Really nice. Play with the color of the armor of the character. Let's first separate the head from the whole mesh. Also with eyes, P to separate. And now let's select the armor, click 2. So we're working on the separate material. Now let's add hue. Actually, let's go with RGB curves. Put it here. And now we have this kind of silverish, really nice material. And let's maybe also crank up the metallic, so it gave some refraction and maybe roughness as well. So that's the result we have so far. It's looking decent, I think. And now we have to light the character itself. So we'll use few lights. This will be area lights, so we will have one light that will be lighting the character from the top, from above. One that will give the rim maybe, so we'll get the point light, get it here, put it in front of the character, so that gives us these cool looking like highlights, that kind of stuff. And we'll get another area light that will be just lighting our character from the side. And let's adjust the colors of the light. Okay, I've ended up adding one more light. So that's really basic, very quickly done. So let's crank up the render samples to something like 300. I think that's enough. And let's render. So with your image rendered, let's go to Compositing tab, and now we will be adding the vignette. So let's click Use Nodes. Let's add Viewer, plug it here, Shift right click to make this just one path. Let's get the new window, go to Image Editor and click Viewer Node. And to add the vignette, you have to add Ellipse Mask, and let's adjust the width and height. That width is okay, and that height. We can adjust it later also. Now let's add Alpha Over, plug Mask into Factor and Image into this node, and Image in the bottom socket. Then plug Image here and plug this. And as you see here, we have the vignette, but it's white, so you have to turn it into black. And we have this rough edges, so we have to add blur between mask and factor. And then select both of these. And as you see here, we have a good looking vignette inside the Blender. No Photoshop. I hope you liked the tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, you know what to do. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and this week I'll be sharing a huge announcement about the upcoming January challenge, so stay tuned. Thanks!